everyone. So it's about 1:02. Let's get started with today's webinar. So today's webinar is brought to you by InfoSeps, a data analytics services firm enabling businesses to optimize and accelerate the value of all of its data assets. Again, my name is Charlene Willis. I'm with Opal Group, and I'll be moderating today's event, which is titled The New Self-Service Analytics, Going Beyond the Tools. So before we start, just a couple of things to mention. The recording will be available for everyone after today's event, as well as the slides. We also encourage you to submit your questions as we go along with our session, and those will be addressed later on after the presentation. So I'll let you know before we jump and introduce the session for today. Our speakers are Subhash Kadi, Executive Vice President of Global Practices at InfoSeps. Subhash has more than 20 years of experience building large-scale transactional data and analytics and citizen engagement solutions, including an award-winning self-service solution for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. As an expert in the field of data and analytics, Subhash oversees InfoSeps' centers of excellence around cloud, platforms, and modern data and analytics. Our next speaker is Praveen Jumani. Praveen has over 19 years helping organizations build modern analytics solutions. As the head of global services at InfoSeps, he is responsible for driving customer advisory, designing service offering to meeting the changing needs of the industry, and leading their 5-service line to develop strong expertise and solution frameworks. Together today, they will discuss what self-service BI really means, how to advance your business's self-service journey, and the lessons learned from real-life examples. So without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Subhash to get us started on today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. And hello, everyone. Praveen and I are super excited to share our point of view on the current state of self-service analytics, some emerging trends, and what we see as critical success factors for advancing our own journey. We base our point of view on the rich body of work that InfoSeps has done for the past 15 years, focused exclusively on data and analytics. We also draw upon our own direct experiences in the public and private sector and the research and experimentation done within our centers of excellence. We hope our experiences benefit the community, and we are always open to exchanging notes with peers, partners, and customers to make collective progress. So feel free to reach out to us. Let me start by demystifying self-service to you. Self-service means different things to different people. Over the last decade, people have gotten more data savvy, and the technology companies are innovating relentlessly and changing narratives in a highly competitive environment. So we want to take a moment and level set what this means in the industry. The first question is, what does self-service do? The goal really here is to make it easier to do any number of things for the end users across the data to decisions lifecycle. For example, it could be starting from using tools for reporting to maybe exploration, or to even advanced use cases such as mashing up or wrangling with data sets. But another key element here is to co-opt the users to do more on their part in that cycle. So think about Amazon. The second question is, why are we doing it? So there are multiple value drivers across the industry, such as reducing the time to decision, maybe transferring the labor effort from IT to business, or even empowering your staff to play with data and analytics to generate their own insights. Ultimately, self-service is about increasing the overall productivity in your ecosystem. The third question is actually interesting and quite often overlooked. What is the context of the self-service? Is it the consumer of analytics, or is it for the developer of the analytics? Is it for an individual, or is it for a team? Most practitioners naturally think in terms of users, but there is another concept about making business units in large organizations self-sufficient. This is where the scale of self-service analytics gets very interesting. Let me share an example to bring this all together. In my experience at the US Department of Health and Human Services, an executive's request for what-if analysis could not be met by his staff without access to raw data from their transactional systems. So we had to open up data sets and give access to a team of data analysts to fulfill their expectations. Now that executive wanted to make transformational decisions about giving out grant dollars for the public health service, and of course, support the political justifications that go along with it. So he really cared about speed and agility to support his firewalls. But he also had a clear expectations that the decisions had to be made by his immediate subordinates and wanted to cut down the layers in passing the insights back to him. So really we had to provide a self-service solution and get out of their way. And I know that Praveen also has some interesting stories from Target, where there was large-scale decentralization of self-service analytics within a business unit that he was part of. So together we invite you to think about your context, the what and the why. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the challenges that both business and IT face in self-service projects. See, in my experience, the operational business units are always dealing with today's pressures. Let me share 3 observations in that context. As users are becoming more mobile across organizations, they often want to bring their own tools. If I'm comfortable taking data and using Excel to do the analysis, what's wrong in it? I mean, should you allow me or not? Another challenge is with data comprehension. See, IT understands where data is stored and in what format, but the business users often question if all the data exists, and then when they do see it, sometimes the way the data is coded may not make sense to them. Also, because the data is growing so fast, it is very difficult for new users to get a handle on the universe that exists in their organization. And then my last observation is really about problem framing. See, more often than not, I've found that sufficient time is not given to discovery. So then needs become wants, and soon business users start demanding features rather than expressing what problem they are facing. And then IT may or may not persist with them to dig deeper and might just give in with a tool. Now, from an IT perspective, they have to deal with supporting today's operational needs and then balance them with the legacy systems built over a number of years and running them, and then the pace of technology and data growth. So they may try to give tools to people for self-service, not realizing that it is not enough. So they also need to get more time from business to make user adoption successful. I can tell you that none of the tools in the market, regardless of their claims, is 100% user-friendly. Users will always need some support to drive adoption. Now, another implication of legacy systems is about organizational inertia. What I mean is, new folks want to modernize, and old guards want to rationalize the choices made in the past. But the reality is that we need both. So this perpetual modernization cycle tied to the inertia creates more challenges in terms of lack of necessary skills for today's needs. And what I found is that breaking this logjam requires soft skills more than technical skills. We feel it is time to revisit how IT and business collaborate and how self-service analytics are designed to deliver sustainable results. Let me turn it over to Praveen.
Thank you, Subhash, and hello and good afternoon all. So now that Subhash has spoken about what self-service really entails and means, let's also talk about how it has evolved over the last 20 years. So since I've sort of been part of data and analytics space for the last 20 years, I've observed self-service moving and evolving in 4 specific phases. It started with very basic self-service in early 2000s, to moving to being guided self-service, to then exploratory. And what we see now is a trend to move towards more augmented self-service. Now I'll explain what these phases are with help of a simple visual around sophistication and agility. And you'll find that when we started and when self-service started, it was more about business users being able to make minor modifications to reports, save their prompts, change columns and rows the way they would want, maybe save it with a certain level of granularity, and then create a view that they like and the way they'd like to see that report or dashboard going forward, save it in their workspace. That was self-service when it started. Then it moved to where users started to connect to OLAP systems, and IT folks started to design data structures which are modeled in a way business could understand in terms of cubes, in terms of relational schemas. And business could then use either Excel or the enterprise BI tool to connect to these cubes and data structures and then create their own reports and dashboards. But it was still limited to what was designed and available and exposed to the business in terms of those OLAP cubes or the relational schemas. Then came the specialized self-service tools like Tableau, ClickView, Power BI, which allowed users a lot more to do in terms of playing with data and exploring data. You know, from even blending their local data that may lie in their local systems in the Excel sheets, to being able to create very rich visualization, to being able to author, publish, and collaborate on a self-service platform. These were some of the functionalities that these specialized self-service platforms and tools provided. To now, where we see the trend moving, where it's become a ecosystem of its own, where you not only have self-service analytics, you have self-service data ingestion, you have self-service data science and machine learning components as part of the ecosystem. So the kind of usage and the kind of functionality has really increased, and that's really where we see the trend going. If you look at the entire self-service continuum, you'll find that in the initial days and the initial stages, it was more IT-led, and then it was limited to the realm of the reports and views that got published by IT, and then users had limited capability to do slicing, dicing, roll up, drill down, and save their views. The interactions were very limited to being grid-based and view tabular in terms of very typical reporting interactions. And the purpose primarily there was for IT to deliver BI efficiently. And instead of creating and replicating 200 Excel reports that different departmental users may have, they would really create the base views and then allow the different departmental users to really save the slice of data and the view that they would like to have. So it was more about delivering BI efficiently than really about the need for getting to know and learn more from the data. Obviously, it was also used done using the enterprise BI solution that was already available. And then it moved during the guided to exploratory phase. It really moved to being more business-led and IT supported. The scope of data that's available to play with and explore increased with those relational schemas and the cubes that got exposed through these self-service tools. And then what became really important was to tell stories with data and with the rich visualization these tools offer. Obviously, the purpose here was to democratize insights and to drive data-driven decision-making as a culture. And clearly here, there was a need to bolt a specialized self-service tool on top of the enterprise data warehouse and the BI ecosystem. And now, if you look at what is the current trend, you'll find that it's more about managing the entire ecosystem, a full stack ecosystem of the self-service landscape. Certainly, it requires a lot more partnership, in terms of governance. So, unlike the notion that self-service will allow business to completely decouple itself from IT, essentially now it's a way where the boundaries between business and IT are blurring, and then there has to be a lot more collaboration partnership. Obviously, it also is given the richer capabilities that are being required with augmented self-service in terms of how users interact with data through cognitive interactions, through Google-like search, through natural language generation and insights. It's become artificial intelligence and machine-assisted self-service is becoming very prevalent now. The primary purpose right now for organizations that are investing in augmented self-service is primarily to be able to uncover the hidden insights from the data that are not visible with manual exploration, and also to really differentiate their products and offerings through innovation and experimentation. So this is really leading to becoming very strategic for organizations as they move forward. So let's look at, now that I've explained you the 4 phases, let's have a quick poll where you can help us understand where is your organization in the self-service journey and where do you think you are currently across these 4 phases. As you answer this question and as the results come out, you'll also realize that you can really benchmark and see whether you are aligned with the larger set of organizations, or are you an outlier on the either side. So let's look to see what the results say here. All right, so we see that about 57%, which is a significant majority, are in the phase 3, exploratory self-service, and that's clearly very aligned with what we have seen with our customers also. And what we have really seen is that a lot of our large customers, while they've started to invest in augmented self-service, they've sort of are working right now to building the foundational elements there. At the same time, in pocket, some of the leading edge, some of the leading business divisions have started augmented AI and augmented self-service in a way. Whereas majority of the mid-size customers that we have and some of the larger customers are in the exploratory phase. And very few, and typically the smaller organizations we see are either doing basic and guided. And when I talk about this, I mean, which level have they reached? Obviously, all of them are doing all these first 3 or first 2, but then most of them are in the exploratory phase. So that's a very aligned observation and finding from this quick poll. Over to you, Subhash.
I think there is a...
All right. So I don't see the slides moving. Can you?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what happened. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
All right. So like we discussed how the self-service has evolved over the last 20 years, and clearly things have changed. It's becoming a lot more evolved, and the scope is expanding. And therefore, it's also important that when you manage your self-service programs and initiatives, you approach it with a new paradigm, and the traditional ways of approaching self-service will not work. Essentially, there are 4 key elements that we think are going to be very important as you design your self-service initiatives and programs. The first one being that you have to have self-service solutions that are purpose-built. The one-size-fits-all paradigm will not work. So, just having a self-service tool and assuming that it will take care of the needs of all your business users would not work anymore with the current trends. And you need to have purpose-built solutions. The second important element is that you can't be technology forward with your self-service approach. If you're looking at a trend that data lake is becoming a big trend, and Gartner says so, you can't just start implementing a data lake solution because that may fail. So what's important now is to have a very strong business orientation and think business backwards and look to onboard capabilities that business really is looking for. The third key element is governance. Now, this is clearly one of the biggest struggles that we have seen our customers facing, where they're finding it very difficult to govern. And the reason is that the approach to governance in the past has been very piecemeal and fragmented and in pockets. With the evolving self-service landscape and the scope, it becomes extremely important that governance is looked at in a very holistic way. And there's a very close collaboration between business and IT to govern the self-service ecosystem. The fourth key point is about ensuring sustainable operations. So a self-service initiative cannot be a one-time standalone initiative. We have to look at it more strategically and ensure that we plan for long term. And therefore, the decisions we take and the approach we take has to be sustainable in the longer run. So sustainable operations becomes extremely important and paramount for success of the self-service initiatives.
Thank you, Praveen. So what we want to do over the next few minutes is elaborate on each of these paradigms. We will briefly discuss the issues and then offer some recommendations on how to go about addressing them. So in the context of the purpose-built solution, I've seen vendors, IT tool providers, and IT leaders within organizations advocate for enterprise solutions that are centered around a single platform or tool. And there are multiple issues with that approach as the technology and analytic needs evolve. First, if you have a new or unmet requirement for self-service, consider doing a full mapping of the data decision journey. For example, I've seen curated data sets being made available to users for insight generation. But if they want to add external data to their curated data sets, their existing journey may not be able to meet the needs, resulting in poor adoption. So now in this case, if IT starts provisioning the missing data, the original intent to speed the insight generation process is not met. So you may have to add niche tools to fill such gaps. Another critical issue is about segmenting users and their analytic intentions. For example, if I'm a data scientist, my needs are more than just getting access to data or insights. I need an environment to develop a model. Perhaps I'm coding in R, maybe test with sample or real data, and then explain the results and the model to the powers to be. And then if they are successful, I may want to operationalize them. And then lastly, when you are developing self-service solutions, think about what I call as the self-sourcing test. This is relevant when business organizations want to bring IT functions closer to them for a variety of reasons. But if IT is not core to your business responsibilities, you may be signing up for more operational responsibilities than necessary. And it matters because it could result in a loss of focus on what you're really accountable for. So you have to be careful about that. So the bottom line is this: take the time to understand your objectives and then build solutions that fit them. Next, I want to share some specific recommendations. The first is to evaluate and validate trade-offs. So say if you don't have the ability to enable data scientists on your current solution, you can either make your existing solution complicated for all business users or consider a separate solution to meet their needs. Sometimes you may have to intentionally bifurcate your approach to meet the short-term needs. But then you can use the governance process to track deviations and then compensate for them. So I know Praveen will talk about that in a bit as well. Secondly, whatever you do, don't make decisions in silos. At one of my clients, we had mapped the data flow from transactional systems to an operational data store to data marts and then a warehouse. The IT organization wanted to save dollars, and so they eliminated the operational data store without talking to business. They claimed that the data marts would meet the self-service needs. What they failed to realize is that every time you refine data, you lose some part of the data, and with it, the ability to use that for insights. Now, 2 years later, when business started complaining, they were back to square one and now are adding the operational data store back in their solution. The third point is what I call as adopting basically a product mindset. When we say self-service, we must ask what service, shouldn't we? So we encourage you to build a service catalog of the services you offer and then manage them using product management and not project management practices. If you do that, you're likely to get better outcomes. And if the service is designed properly, you can replace tools easily as well as deprecate a service when not necessary. Or who knows, maybe even outsource that service if better options become available in the future. So imagine a self-service for data scientists, or maybe self-service for data analysts, and so on. The next paradigm is about choosing business orientation over technology orientation. And this is really about educating and aligning leaders and business users across the full spectrum of the self-service analytics lifecycle. Let me highlight 3 specific issues that we see and expect in the market. The first is about the importance of change advocacy in your modernization journey. Let us say if you are in a guided phase in your organization and users are requesting features that are exploratory in nature. You may have to modernize your legacy solutions to get to the next level, but that may be very costly. And so you experience what I call earlier as the organizational inertia. In such a situation, you must apply soft skills to influence the leaders. If you show alignment with their business priorities, you're likely to get more success. The second issue is about data literacy. As more organizations aspire to adopt data-driven or data-informed cultures, leaders must note that educating business users is not going to be really about, it is not going to be enough. It is not about teaching or acquiring individual skills such as using a self-service tool. It is really about end-to-end expertise to be able to convert data into decisions. So you have to invest in analytic competencies within your organization to get that value. And then the last issue is sort of related to the data literacy one. So business wants more and more data, and when you give it to them, they may not fully understand it. Why this happens is because often the data models are built by technical staff, and so as a result, the need for business analysts and translators is becoming more and more critical in the industry. So IT must partner with business to solve for this. So moving on, what are some of the ways to address such issues? Let me share a few. The first is to get commitment from leadership. If you're not satisfied with the status quo in your organization, it doesn't matter whether you are in IT or in business, what we have found is building coalitions at different levels and using evidence to make your case always helps. So we have a customer where their existing self-service capabilities are really about basic or guided reporting, but some stakeholders want to move to the next level. So in this situation, one way to build evidence is to do journey mapping and show the gaps to the leaders. Likewise, if you feel the level of analytic competence in your organization needs to be raised, you can survey users to identify their ability to run the report, maybe detect anomalies, deal with data sets, to show the strengths and gaps to the leaders. The second recommendation, which is almost universal, is to engage users early and often. IT cannot simply design an architecture, provision minimum viable data sets, install a tool, and then sort of declare success. I've seen projects that claimed they were following agile practices get delayed by 6 months or more because the right data elements were not selected and no buy-in was taken from the actual business that was supposed to consume the data for self-service. So this can be easily avoided through closer collaboration. And then my last recommendation is for our solution to speak the business language. I've seen several examples where organizations try to build consensus on data fields. While some consensus is necessary, especially around master data, we have to allow for different nuances so that business, finance, marketing, sales can look at the data from their perspective. IT needs to collaborate and support such requirements in their approach. It is sort of like we have one English language, but so many different dialects. And at the end of the day, we do okay to understand each other. So over to you, Praveen, for the next one.
So the third very important element, as we discussed, is governance and collaborative governance. And the key thing here is having a shared responsibility model between business and IT. And there are three specific areas where there has to be more focus when one is designing the governance framework for a self-service landscape. The first thing is data quality. You'll be surprised that data quality is the reason why 45% of the analytics initiatives, and specifically self-service ones, fail. And the biggest reason is that users don't trust data and therefore they don't adopt the solutions. It's very important to ensure that data quality strategy is right and it's supported well for your self-service initiative. The second thing that becomes extremely important from a governance standpoint is financial prudence and financial viability. As you give more freedom and as you let go the control of choosing how applications are built and how the ecosystem is consumed, it's very easy for the cost to really go through the roof and sort of go out of control. So it's important that governance takes care of financial viability in a longer run for a self-service initiative. The third thing that becomes extremely important is how you're allowing self-service to evolve your data and analytics ecosystem and architecture, and making sure it's happening in a controlled way and not in an in an organic way, because you would need to ensure that you are able to sustain this environment for a longer time. Now, there's some specific best practices and specific things across these three areas that I like to highlight. Subhash, can you change the slide? Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
So the first one,
yeah,
about financial accountability, and with one of our, in fact, with my earlier organization, which is one of the leading retailers in the US, there was one very simple thing we did, which helped us bring a lot of financial accountability to the self-service initiative. And that was that we linked the capacity that a business unit or a business function gets to drive self-service, to run self-service algorithms, analytics algorithms, and consume the ecosystem, was driven by how much funding that business provided. And given that most of the ecosystems now are moving to cloud, this has become easier. There are technologies available by which you could dynamically manage ramping up the capacity in terms of CPU cycles, database space, and the licenses, or you can throttle it down and bring it down based on the amount of funding you're getting from the respective business units. So that becomes very important, and that's a very simple way in which you could establish financial accountability and control. The second thing that becomes, that's about shared responsibility. And here with one of our large retail customers, we have found that they had a very good arrangement done in terms of how they're going to manage the entire self-service ecosystem. So they had this bimodal analytics architecture. And obviously the certified environment, the enterprise environment, was completely managed by the IT end-to-end. But on the self-service side, the IT team took a clear ownership of, one, providing all the foundational core data to the self-service environment with certain SLAs they committed to business, and two, making sure they have committed SLAs for the availability of self-service platform for the business. So these were taken care by the IT, but any of the self-service applications that were being built within the self-service landscape, and if business users needed support for that, that was still taken care by the business, the power users, and the champions within the business team itself. So very beautifully, between the IT and the business teams, they were able to collaboratively manage and govern and share the responsibility of the entire self-service platform together. The third thing that becomes extremely important is the architecture principles that you set up. For example, one key element here is that you should identify what's your core foundational data and the core foundational transactional systems from which you will source it. And this data, which you could call as certified or enterprise data, should come through a unified pipeline. And self-service should not be allowed to build data pipelines for this data, the certified or the enterprise data. Whereas all the other local data, the external syndicated data, can be allowed to be ingested by the self-service platform. Now, this helps in 3-4 ways. One, it helps ensure that you are not hogging the resources of your transactional systems which run your critical business processes. Two, you are making sure that you are not creating multiple data pipelines which are redundant and therefore needing a lot more management and operational overhead. And three, you are ensuring single version of truth, and you're not having same data being sourced differently by different applications. So that's very important, and those could be some of the basic governance principles from an architecture standpoint you could establish. The fourth thing, which is very important, is about having the right data quality strategy. And here, one best practice we have seen really work is to have executive sponsorship on data quality. You need to identify a business sponsor that is responsible and takes the ownership of driving data quality within the function he or she belongs to. The second thing which has really worked for some of our customers is to make the power users, who are very heavy users of self-service environment, to make them the data stewards and make them ensure that they are able to own the quality of data. Now, these are some of the best practices we have seen working very well and very collaboratively as far as governance of self-service is concerned. Now, the fourth element that's very important is sustainable operations. And here, there are three key things that you need to keep in mind as you look at sustainable operations for a self-service environment. The very first thing is to ensure that you have a way to have a closed loop and a link of whatever you're doing in your self-service ecosystem with the enterprise roadmap. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The second thing is to ensure that you have a plan to engage business on a sustained basis. And you're making sure that the momentum that you pick with business on self-service and on being data driven is not sort of losing its steam. The third thing that becomes very important is also to ensure for sustainability that you're controlling technology proliferation and you're controlling the technology debt that you are adding to the ecosystem. Now let's talk about a few best practices that we have seen working in this context. So first thing really is to make sure that you avoid enabling capabilities that are not required and you rationalize the investments and efforts. For example, typically in a self-service landscape, 80% of your users would be about casual users and 20% would be power users. So there's no need to procure and distribute authoring licenses to all of them. You could have read licenses for 80% of your users and authoring licenses for self-service solution for the remaining 20%. Now that way you save a lot of cost on licensing itself. You'll also find that you'll have about 2 to 8% of your users being really heavy data science users, if at all, and if you are in the higher more advanced stages of self-service. So you may need those specialized augmented AI tools only for those limited set of citizen data scientists, maybe. You can also leverage self-service environment and actually rationalize your investments in enterprise project by proof testing requirements and eliciting requirements by doing quick build outs on self-service environment and therefore failing fast. So those are a few ways in which you could rationalize efforts and investments. The second thing that becomes very important is to embed a very functionally competent data technologist within the business teams. It's like, you know, when you first started to do self-checkouts in your retail stores, you would see that there would be store associates who will come and help you and assist you. They still are there for people who are not used to self-checkouts. In a very similar way here, when you are looking to have business do their own BI and analytics, you'll need to embed those specialists who help and support business to start learning and using the tools and the capabilities you're providing. These are also the specialists who have a primary responsibility to improve the data IQ of the business users. So that's very important. The third thing that becomes very important is to be very diligent about what tools you're onboarding and whether those are really required. They may sound very fancy and very appealing, but unless you really have business use cases, don't onboard, and ensure that you have a very competent sort of a steering team that's deciding what platforms, what tools you'd like to onboard for your self-service journey, and certainly avoid over-engineering. The final thing and a very important thing is to ensure that your self-service applications have a defined lifetime. Most of the self-service solutions or applications or models that are built are for answering some very specific transient questions. And after they are done, those should be sort of killed or sunset. And if there are self-service solutions that seem to be the one that business wants on a sustained basis, there has to be a very well-defined closed loop mechanism to push it back to the enterprise landscape through the right approvals, where the ownership for those applications moves to IT, so that business is able to really focus on running the business than supporting these self-service solutions. So those are some key elements that you need to keep in mind as you look for sustainable operations.
Thank you. Great, Praveen. So now that you have heard about the 4 paradigms from our side, I would like to hear from you. Which of these paradigms sort of are resonating with you? What's sort of most relevant in your context? You have the options, the 4 options, and then if none of them resonate, then you can select one of the above, and then please get in touch so that we can get some feedback. We're very curious to see whether, I think, like, the issues are basically around, solutions, around governance, or the softer side in terms of persuading leaders, or maybe, it is still about, managing costs sort of operations. Okay, let me see. Looks like collaborative governance over fragmented governance was sort of the winner. And then I think the rest, I think like, purpose-built solution and business orientation, I think like, sort of almost even. That's great. So I think, thank you everyone for the feedback. Sort of, just to sort of, bring this thing to a closure, I hope, I think these paradigms sort of open your perspective and you find them helpful. To us, there are multiple enabling tools and technologies to address data and analytic challenges. But going beyond tools requires us to embrace practices that require a lot of collaboration across the organization. Without that, you are unlikely to see the results you expect from your self-service data and analytic investments. Praveen and I want to leave you with these 4 takeaways as you look to make progress in your own journey. In short, begin with the end in mind. Don't lead with technology. Seek commitment from stakeholders and prepare for perpetual modernization. So it sounds simple, right? In an ironic way, instead of looking at your data and converting that into decisions, you should perhaps ask what decisions you want to make and then enable self-service to get to that data and insight as quickly as possible. Thank you. So with that, we are happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Subhash and Praveen. So we do have a few questions that have come in during your presentation. So let me pull those up now. The first question here is, can you elaborate the augmented self-service phase from the exploratory phase? Maybe using an example, perhaps.
Sure. So let me take that question. So essentially, if you look at exploratory, it was more about, still being able to use tools like Power BI, like Tableau or Qlik, and still sort of being able to connect to a model data and then being able to create your own visualizations, rich dashboards, annotate it, share it, publish it, and all of that. And obviously with that, because you could connect to database tables, you could connect to cubes, you could also blend your own local data. There was a lot of possibility to explore, to blend data and then create, insights that just enterprise data would not give you. But it is still much simpler. It is still a little unidimensional in that sense. However, when you come to augmented, there are 2-3 key elements that are different. One, with the augmented self-service, you are able to assemble data, which means you are able to actually do a self-service data ingestion also. And you're not just blending it in your local view, but you're really looking to get that data in the data lake or in the self-service ecosystem on your own by building your own data pipelines. The second thing is it's also about being able to use artificial intelligence and machine learning to catalog your data and to understand the relationships, the profiling of data, etc., where the machine itself will tell you what data links to which other data and which one you should use. So you don't get lost in the myriad of database tables, etc., and it will tell you very visually how and where what data you should pick up. The third thing that it does is that you could become a citizen data scientist in the sense that you don't really have to understand the algebra of advanced analytics. You don't have to understand the k-means algorithm, clustering algorithm. What augmented self-service does is it allows you in the specialized tools like H2O or Alteryx or Sisense, which will help you recommend you what, if you're looking at customer segmentation, it will tell you what segmentation model, and it will propose to you or recommend to you the right models you could use. So you don't have to really be a data scientist to do segmentation. You can do it yourself. So it's about these. And the fourth element that really is sort of getting highlighted with the new augmented BI is the whole cognitive interaction. So A lot of it is about you being able to, and Google has really spoiled us, that just sort of type a natural language query and then, expect the tool to provide you all the insights from the data you've pointed it to. Also, to be able to use chat functionality and be able to converse with the system and the data as you have more follow-up questions. So these are some elements that make augmented self-service different from how it is exploratory self-services.
Thank you, Praveen. The next question I have is, what type of an operating model do you need to implement self-service in a large organization with multiple business units? Would you like to take it, Subhash?
Praveen, go ahead, you can take it. I think since you have direct experience.
So I think I'll talk about it. Operating model could be a very broad area, but let me talk about a few roles that become very important, which are not there, in a traditional setup. So first thing clearly is having a sub-function on data quality and data governance. Now these are people who are data stewards who actually are very close to where their data gets authored and can control the quality of data there. So that role becomes very important to have embedded within your business organization to support self-service. The second thing, and these are people who really know where what data lies, and therefore if business has a question on, hey, I'm looking for this data and where can I find it? If you don't have a data cataloging solution, these are the people who can sort of help you with that. The second role that becomes extremely important here is are the analysts, the data analysts or the business analysts. And these are really the power users. These are folks who really understand how to use these advanced specialized self-service tools and who really generate the right insights and solve business problems using data and those tools. So you won't expect an actual merchant in a retailer to do self-service, and to do his or her own analysis beyond being a casual user. But you'll have a business analyst attached to the merchandising function or to the buyers to support them with insights through self-service. So that role becomes extremely important. The third role, which has now started to emerge, are the citizen data scientists. Now, these are even further evolved. They are folks who understand advanced analytics, who understand statistical modeling, and they are able to then solve a lot of complex problems, through applying the data science concepts. And, that's another role that sort of has started to emerge on the business side. Now, one other element that I already elaborated that becomes extremely important is to have a change control board that oversees how self-service solutions that have established their efficacy and something that larger audience and business community is looking to consume, how that moves to the enterprise roadmap. And that requires you to have the right approval process. That requires you to have a change control board that really looks at it, approves it, and certifies it to become part of your enterprise BI roadmap and priorities. So that process also becomes extremely important as you set up operational models for your self-service environment. Subhash, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add one thing. So I think what I found, is that when you are large organizations with multiple business units, you have to sort of ask the question of like how much of the business of those business units is sort of whether is it a heterogeneous business or a homogeneous business, right? And so why that matters is that can allow you to decide how much you want to sort of standardize and how much you want to sort of decentralize and use an integration strategy, right? So I think that's a model that actually that approach basically has worked very well for us in the past. I think if folks are interested, I think MIT's Center for Information Systems Research has published a model called Enterprise Architecture as a Strategy, and I would recommend sort of folks to sort of refer to that. I think it gives you a very good framework because if the businesses basically are not related, then I think there is not a whole lot of reason to actually centralize. And what you centralize is really just the procurement process, so that you can get volume discounts from purchasing, I think BI tools and so on. But on the other hand, if they are very homogeneous and there is a lot of dependence on data, then you actually have to create enterprise-wide data models and then of course, anytime you do that, there is more need actually for collaboration. So I would invite, the folks who ask the question to sort of perhaps look at that framework.
Thank you, Subhash and Praveen. I think we have time for one more question, and then wanted to reiterate to everyone that if you didn't get your question answered today, that it will be addressed as well, and Praveen and Subhash will also provide answers. So we'll close it out with, how do we know we are ready to move to the next level in the self-service solutions?
Yeah, I mean, I can take that, Praveen. So I think, how do you move to the next level in the self-service solutions? So, I think I would, respond by saying that, you may want to look at like 3 or 4 dimensions, right? So first, I think is that, what kind of conversations are you having within your organization, right? I mean, do you have a lot of unmet needs? Are there a lot of questions that cannot be answered, in a timely manner, in a responsive manner, based on your current, situation? What is sort of the leadership thinking? So I think sort of that is sort of one element that I would emphasize. The second one will be to sort of look at that, how is sort of self-service connected to your business strategy, right? So for example, Praveen had mentioned that in the augmented phase, right, the intent is really more about innovation and experimentation. So let's say if you are in the midst of sort of looking at your business model and perhaps changing it, I know that a lot of companies, they are sort of almost forced to look at that with the COVID-19 situation. Then sort of that could be another element. The third, I think, will be to look at what is sort of the skill sets or the readiness basically of the people, and that can be done by conducting sort of surveys. And then the last one, I think, would be to do sort of an assessment, and I'm just talking like a very high level assessment of your overall infrastructure. Like, for example, do you use cloud, do you not use cloud, things like that. So I think, based on that, you should be able to form a picture that allows you to sort of at least take that first step. And then if you feel like, the indicators are there, then I would invite you to, create some awareness sessions for your leadership and then see if they're interested in moving forward. So that would be my, input.
Praveen, anything to add?
I think Subhash covered it all. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So we'll wrap up again for the questions that were not answered today. Subhash and Praveen will address those. We're also going to share the recording and the presentation with everyone after as well and send that to you via email. So with that, I thank you all for joining today's webinar and have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.